actually the one not only who came up with the concept of the Big Bang Theory, but it was even later known in the 1950s, because he was Catholic. Even the Catholic people agreed with him that this theoretical science of the Earth coming from a single point does in fact coincide with the Lord saying, "Let there be light in the beginning." So most
No,
atheists
it
promote the
doesn't.
Big Bang. Actually, it does. That's why I just said
No, it
Georges
doesn't.
Fortes Lemaitre. Yes,
Yeah,
he is a
Georges
Catholic
Lemaitre. Yeah.
priest.
Yep.
Yeah, he's a Catholic. He
I know
literally is
that.
creating this theoretical idea off of the notion that God created everything in the beginning.
No, he's
That you can
not.
laugh at it, but it's not your idea. It's his idea, and you can make fun of it.
Yeah, it's
But
his
that's the
idea, not
truth.
the Bible's idea. Yeah. Well, it's not really
Actually, he
his idea.
created the idea because it was inspired by the Bible. Where did
No,
you
he
think the idea
didn't.
came from?
By
Yes, it
stud.
is.
No,
So you
he
think it's a
got the idea.
coincidence that a guy
Are you
believes
gonna
in
shut
God
up or not?
and came up with this concept and the whole world believes it? You think it's a coincidence? Because
How
that's
did
a pretty fucking amazing coincidence.
a book that says literally nothing specific
That
at
God
all
said,
can
"Let
be,
there be light," and there was light.
holy fucking shit, dude? A book that literally says
Doesn't
basically,
matter. The Big Bang is still a Christian concept.
if you
Still a
interrupt me,
Christian concept.
okay, if you interrupt me again,
Deal
I'm
with it,
just
bro.
gonna have to kick you out. So if you don't have the mental or emotional fortitude to have a
That's fine. That's
conversation,
fine.
then that's on you. It's fine. We'll
Accept it.
just have this conversation without you.
Can't accept it's a
So
Christian concept.
although that you are still interrupting, I'm going to just wait until I'm done with my thought here. But just so you know, the next time you interrupt me, you're gone. So do you understand?
Just said it's a Christian concept. That's all
It's
that
not
I'm
a
here
Christian
for.
concept.
It is. Okay,
Georges
so who made it? Was it a
Lemaitre,
Christian or an atheist? Did God give an atheist this idea, or did he give a Christian this idea?
I told you. So there you go. So Georges Lemaitre came up with the theory not by reading the Bible, but by doing science, by looking at the cosmological and astronomical data. Later on, the Pope wanted to like congratulate Georges Lemaitre, and he wanted to like make it part of like official Catholic doctrine or something like that. And Georges Lemaitre said, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa! Don't do that." Because science can be overturned. We may learn some data in the future that says that this isn't true. And if that's the case, then the church would have to admit that it's wrong. That would make the religion wrong by extension. Now in desperation, they would flail around and be like, no, it doesn't count for whatever reason. But no, it's not a religious concept at all. Where do I have this? I wrote about this in my book. The Big Bang proves the Bible. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The Big Bang offers no explanation for what created the universe, but since the Big Bang is a scientific theory, and science appeals to naturalism while rejecting the supernatural, it could never support this claim. Neither could any scientific theory. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. There was no planet Earth when the universe was created. Everything happening in these passages occurs in the first day of creation. Big Bang cosmology tells us that nothing we could call matter as we know it existed for several 100,000 years after the universe began to expand. The conditions were too extreme. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. Again, there was no light at the beginning of the universe. The universe was completely opaque to any kind of energy. God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. What does that even mean? God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. Oh, that's what it means. This is hilarious because the sun wasn't created until the fourth day. What was responsible for separating light from darkness according to this theory? Again, matter composed of atoms, let alone stars, did not exist for hundreds of thousands of years after the universe began to expand. Even if you're a young Earth creationist who believes the universe is only a few thousand years old, there's no explanation for what divides the night from the day. And there was evening and there was morning, the first day. No, there wasn't. So there's this atheist science communicator named Peter Atkins, who I'm actually not a very big fan of, but he calls these words in the Bible elastic words, and that's the perfect analogy. The words of the Bible are just vague enough that you can stretch their meaning to make them say whatever you want. The only case you could make is the Big Bang tells us the universe appears to have a beginning, and the Bible appears to say the same thing. But that's incredibly weak considering it was one of only two possibilities. So you don't get special points for being right when there was a 50-50% chance. How many aneurysms do you think that burger boy would have had trying, if he was still up here, trying to listen to me read that without him interrupting? I'm guessing about infinity aneurysms. Is he still here? No, he ran away to go suck his thumb.
What, if you can like imagine in the future, are things do you think that are going to be much more socially acceptable about? Like, I feel like we regressed a little with the flat Earth and stuff, but
what things do I think humans will think are true in the future that not as many think are true now? Or like, what things do I think people will think are good that they don't think are good now? Or
I guess I'm equating both of them to be the same. Like the truth is good.
Sure. I mean, the young Earth creationism is actually believed by many tens of millions of Americans, and I'm hoping we can get that number down to tens, full stop, and hopefully just in a few decades, because it is equally as stupid as thinking the Earth is flat. Evolution is also, it is by far the most disbelieved or I don't know how you would say this. It's by far the most disbelieved scientific theory. It's also the scientific theory that people have the greatest amount of like agnosticism about. They're just like, I don't know. And I mean, that doesn't bother me as much as denying it, but at the same time, it's just so undeniable. But the evidence is, I mean, you do need to be properly educated about the evidence, I suppose. I did see this poll somebody brought up once where like 30% of millennials take that position about the shape of the Earth. They're just not sure, which doesn't mean they're flat earthers, but they're not sure. And that's pretty wild to me. So I hope that those kinds of numbers go down.
Right. Well, because then I think about like 100 years ago, what was socially acceptable because of what people learned through like stories or schooling and stuff. Now we look at and we think those people are idiots. So I wonder what.
Well, that would be
look back 100 years from now. And
sure.
be like,
oh my God. I would say things like slavery was bad. There are still There are still states printing books that say, well, I mean, you know. They were allowed to sing Master Got Me Working while they were working the fields, and that's a kumbaya right there. That means it wasn't really all that bad. It's like, fucking God, what is wrong with you idiots?
So then like maybe prisons, like something 100 years from now, we would look at prisons and say, okay.
What? I think prisons are probably necessary just because of how, if you have this many people, you're going to have a certain population that are just simply psychotic and they just can't work in society. But I think that prisons should be, so I firmly am an advocate for like restorative, or not restorative, but what the hell's the word? Not restorative justice, but I can't remember. But basically, we don't do a very good job of our judicial system and penal system is penal, whatever. Pause is very reactive and not proactive. So we know that there are certain kinds of things that do a pretty good job of dealing with like decreasing the rate of recidivism, and we just don't do a good job with those kinds of things. There are also, if you read some books by Robert Sapolsky, he's a neuroscientist, but he's very, very involved in criminal justice reform because he gets asked to testify at like high profile cases for people that are really terrible people that did really terrible things. But he goes in there and he lays out the evidence for them. Like, look, this person's brain is for certain cases, because of the way people's brains are, it's simply not acceptable to hold them responsible to the point where you're going to say that they need to be killed for what they did, you know? So I would hope like the death penalty going away, that would be a big thing for me.
But don't you think that that change only comes with like acceptance of that fact that we shouldn't be killing people with the state?
Yeah,
Because there's so many people right now that believe that the death penalty is the right way to go, even though we know that like it disproportionately hurts a certain sect of people.
right. So, I mean, like, fundamentally, how do I want to say this? I don't think we should necessarily try to, well, no, I do think this. So, like, my biggest thing is because people on the left were, for the most part, all in favor of getting rid of the death penalty, although both sides agree that we should probably just kill pedophiles during halftime of the Super Bowl. But for people on the right, what I would try to do is to meet them where they're at, tell them, like, look, you believe in limited government, and on what grounds can you claim that the government has the right to decide who gets to live and who gets to die? That just doesn't really make any sense. Now, like, the government has, you know, a duty to protect its citizens, and so, like, we're fully okay with, like, going to war and drafting people and whatever. It's just sort of it's unfortunate, but it's a necessary thing, and that's maybe how they would think about the death penalty or whatever. But I just think that taking that position and then showing the, like, overwhelming scientific evidence behind it, and also demonstrating the fact that we know people have been wrongfully killed, would hopefully get them on, you know, our side of it.
But I feel like we already know that this is a sect of people that aren't listening to science, that don't trust science. And it's like, it's almost like art, maybe. I know that sounds insane, but like, because like art can take us to places we can't go on our own. And like, just having this idea of like being able to see something through someone else's eyes, like that's such like a missing element to being able to see why it's so wrong.
I mean, it's not that I disagree with you. I'm just less pessimistic. So, like, for example, like when you say this is the side that doesn't like believe in science. Well, in reality, it's a whole bunch of different groups on the political right that don't trust specific sciences, and so they get lumped together. Like when you say the Republican Party is made of people that don't believe in X, Y, and Z. I was like, yes, but your typical Republican doesn't reject all of X, Y, and Z. It may just be like one thing. That's one part of it. The other part of it would be, we can come up with some examples that have been won over really quickly just in the last, like think about since 2000, where the public consensus on things like gay marriage and global warming and climate change have gone. Republicans, although they still have some work to do, for the most part, they're in favor of gay marriage. So that's just like a political moral thing on one side. In the year like 2000, virtually all of them said that global warming isn't even a thing. Whereas today, I don't know what the numbers are, but you really don't hear, like there are some kooks out there, but even if the prominent ones are out there admitting that it's a thing, they just don't really think our activity or our actions, like we can legislate it away. Like that's progress, right? So I'm not too pessimistic about it. It's just going to take longer than it should.
I don't think you think free will like exists. Like, how would you like go in your life about that if you don't think free will exists?
So, I act like free will exists, and you can call me a hypocrite, but you and I both know that $100 bill is worth only a few cents. But if I owned a shop, which I do, I have a Planet Peterson shop on Shopify. You can get your very own Spanky there. But although I know that that's not true, I'm perfectly happy to pretend that it is true because it works. It's either a useful shorthand because I know it represents something, or it's just a fiction that I believe in. And there are other examples of that, like human rights. They don't really exist, but I have no problem creating a system where we say that these are the rules. Like, you can't just play Monopoly and be like, these rules are made up, right? So no, I'm not going to pay you because I landed on whatever boulevard and you own a hotel there or something. So there's that. I act as if free will exists, I guess. I don't really remember your question. I think that probably does answer your question, because you just said, like, how do you
Yeah,
deal
it
with
does.
that or whatever.
Yeah, it does. Thank you. Also, like, you're like or you have like a degree in evolution or something.
It's just in biology. I didn't really have an
Oh,
area
yeah.
of emphasis, but I took more classes in. They only offered one evolutionary biology class. Go figure. But I went to a really tiny college, so you couldn't really specialize very much. But I stayed more on the side of like development and genetics rather than like biotechnology or biochemistry.
Hmm. Well, I was just wondering, like, you know how there's like, in evolution, like, there's like altruistic like traits or whatever that get selected for. Like, could that explain how, like, homosexual, like, I guess, traits could be explained? Like, if benefits the group,
Right.
by raising young or something.
Um,
Like, is that true?
Well, I don't know if this has really been studied at all, because yeah, this is something people say. It's funny. It's kind of weird. Like evolution can't explain homosexuality because if you're a homosexual, then you almost certainly won't reproduce. So there can't be any like biological basis for it. It's weird. Like, people who are just don't believe in evolution but aren't bigoted will use it, but people who are who are homophobes will also and believe in evolution or whatever, they'll use it too. But pretty much what you're saying is a very logical explanation. There's nothing wrong with that explanation because we're a social group. So what I would do, if you ever hear somebody say that, you could use a different example, which is humans, like women live to be about twice the age of the onset of uh, uh, what the fuck is wrong with my
Like the
brain right now?
reproductive like period.
Yeah, like what, menopause.
Mhm.
God, that human women live to be about twice the age of the onset of menopause. Could not think of the word. Now, why is that? If we look at our closest relatives, chimpanzees, their life expectancy is only a few years past menopause. And the idea behind that is humans, the grandparents, like our social group is tighter. Chimps live in groups, but they kick males out of their groups, and they're extremely violent, even toward each other. Jane Goodall documented horrendous examples of, there are these two completely psychopathic chimps named Passion and Palm, and they would repeatedly grab babies from other members of their tribe and eat them. And it happened over and over and over and over again. And it's very, very strange. But anyways, humans, for all of our problems, at least we're not fucking chimpanzees, right? Not like chimpanzees, but like fucking as in an adjective, not a verb. So it's thought that the human communal group or tribe always had the more extended family, and grandparents historically have been very important for raising grandchildren. So the older, the longer members of your group live, the better the odds of the young surviving are, which can be selected for. Now, take that logic and apply it to homosexuality. There's no reason. Now, you can even say that, like, homosexuality, it's obviously not common. It's an outlier. It's a quirk of biology. It's not an error. That I'm like, you could even call it that if you want to, and that's fine. But like being redheaded is an error, kind of, in a way, because it's not very common. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't still convey some benefit to society. Even if there's no such thing as the Met Gala, homosexuals are still useful for humans.
Yeah, I think it's kind of similar to how like monkeys will, like have a warning call, like if a predator's around. Like it doesn't benefit them because like the predator could find them faster or whatever, but it benefits the group.
Yeah, totally. It's beneficial toward the group. That was what I said was a very extended version of that, but you want to come up with some like scientific explanation, not just say it outright. But yeah, there's also well, never mind. I don't even know what I was going to say.
Also, like, how much like smarter would you say we are than like a chimp? Like 1%?
Oh, I don't know. I have no idea. I mean, the problem with chimps is they can't talk and pass on information. So if they could do that, then there's no telling what they'd be like. If we're as remarkable as we think we are, then if we would go back in time hundreds of thousands of years and look at ourselves, we should expect more than these things running around, maybe not wearing any clothes, acting basically like wild. Like if aliens came to Earth, Jared Diamond wrote a whole book about this, where he wrote that, if aliens came to Earth a few 100,000 years ago and they looked at human beings and they looked at chimpanzees, they would just say humans are a type of chimpanzee. They're a wild animal. Now they do things differently, but there would be no possible way you could look at humans 100,000 years ago and be like, yeah, they'll probably land on the moon. Like, no. So